Continuing with the second part of our critical review of the book Hebrewisms of West Africa, we would delve into the name Asante, specifically exploring its anglicized version, Ashanti. I will begin by reviewing the author's claims and providing my commentary. The author titled this section, Derivation of Ashanti. Derivation of Ashanti. Let's go to page 60 and see what he tells us. The very name Ashanti has itself a strong Hebraic flavor. For, while some will derive the word from Shan, the name of a plant, and Di, to eat, claiming that the title must have been acquired in the time of a great famine, when they found sustenance in the plant in question. This is mere guesswork. Actually, the termination T or Tie in the names of West African tribes has usually the general meaning of the race of, the men of, the children of. This would make Ashanti the people of Ashan. There was, as a fact, a town of the name of Ashan in the domain of Judah. Priests were in residence there, according to the first book of Chronicles, where the word is spelled Ashan, though in the corresponding passage of Joshua it is spelled Ayin, which the Jewish encyclopedia suggests may simply be a corruption of Ashan. Now, is it a mere coincidence again that Erwin de Bari, referring to heir of Asben, north of Agadez, calls it Ain? And further, can its other name be a corruption of Ashan? The primary meaning of the Hebrew word Ashan is smoke, and it is used primarily of a burning city, and secondly, figuratively of the destruction of Israel. The latter meaning would be significant and certainly applicable to fugitives from the destroyers of Jerusalem, whether they were the Assyrians or the Romans. Okay. The author's claims are truly incredible. I am left speechless by the magnitude of these assertions. The author's approach begins by suggesting that something possesses a distinct Hebraic essence. He states, the very name Ashanti has itself a strong Hebraic flavor, meaning that it has a strong Hebraic resemblance. However, this methodology raises questions about whether the focus is on specific elements or merely resemblances. The thing is either Hebraic or it's not. Such an approach, strong Hebraic flavor, such an approach can be highly problematic, if not perilous, as I will elucidate shortly. It mirrors the flawed reasoning employed by those who assert connections between the name Achan and Akan, linking them to the tribe of Judah based on a shared or a Hebraic flavor, a Hebraic resemblance, persuading uninformed observers. The author's assertion regarding the Asante community having a Hebrew influence is fundamentally flawed, and it stems from a misunderstanding of the historical facts. It relies on an anglicized corruption of the name Asante, which, when scrutinized, reveals the fallacy at the core of the argument. The correct name is Asante, derived from Asa Inti, not Ashan Te, as erroneously suggested. The author proceeds to critique Claridge's assertion in his book, History of the Gold Coast and Ashanti, Volume 1. He critiques him regarding the origins of the name Ashanti. In his book, Claridge presents 3 reasons for the name Ashanti. Let's look at these 3 reasons and then I would comment on them. So we're going to be reading A History of the Gold Coast and Ashanti by Walton Claridge. We're going to go to page 5. I'm going to read from the top. The subdivision of the united Akan race into its main branches, the Fantis and Ashantis, is variously accounted for. The split, however, seems to have occurred long before the coastline was reached, and while the principal settlements were in the country north of the River Pra and present at Dansie and around Techiman. One story, very plausible, explains the constant raids of their northern enemy, who burned all the farms, reduced the Akans to great straits for food. Some of them subsisted on a wild plant named fan, and others on a plant named shan, and thus gained the names Fante and Shante. D to eat. So it's Fandi and Shandi if I want to be critical. But it's supposed to be Fante and Shante, and then the T here or the D here is to eat. Okay. The former subsequently migrated further south, and the latter remained in the more northerly district of the forest. But though this story accounts for the names Fante and Ashanti, and it is worthy of note that the initial A of the latter is not pronounced by the people, it fails to explain why they separated. Another account says that a section of the people disliked the king and conspired to poison him. The names of the 2 tribes are derived from the names of the foods they offered to him. The Fantis are said to have gathered fan, and the Ashantis a poisonous herb called asun or aswan, which with the verb chi, that is to gather, give the derivation of these names. The king, discovering what the Ashantis had done, naturally favored the Fantis, but they were not strong enough to withstand the jealousy and oppression of the former, who ultimately drove them from the country. Yet another version of this story says that a quarrel arose among the people, who divided into 2 factions, one of which migrated further south. They became known as the Fatrifo, meaning a portion of the people who had cut themselves off from the main body, and the others were called Aswachifo, meaning the people who had not hearkened, because they refused to listen to the advice of the king when he wanted to restore peace and prevent the Ashantis from driving the Fantis away. So these are the three explanations that we get from Claridge. The first explanation provided by Claridge is deemed inaccurate and speculative. Okay. Moving on to the second explanation, it is also considered inaccurate and speculative. Finally, the third explanation is also inaccurate and speculative, although with some elements of truth. I would elaborate on this point very shortly. It would follow very shortly, focusing on the significance of the fo, fachefo, and the aswachefo. When we focus on that fo, we would see that it tells us something. Okay? So put that in your spirit. Now, while criticizing Walton Claridge for his speculative explanation of the origin of the name Ashanti, the author carelessly engages in a similar practice, although to a great extent. Claridge's assertion, which the author challenges, also lacks accuracy. It does. However, it's worth noting that the reference for, fachefo, asochefo, that reference as a way to denote the people of is a valid point by Claridge. I repeat that again. Claridge tells us that the Fantis were called Fachefo, and then the Ashantis Aswochefo. And I'm saying that even though Claridge's assertion also lacks accuracy, it is worth noting that the reference that he uses, the reference to for or fo, as a way to denote the people of, is a valid point. With that, Claridge is correct. Put that in your spirit. So while the author of Hebrewisms of West Africa labels Claridge's claim as mere speculation, which is guesswork, it is evident that he himself is engaging in conjecture and propagating unfounded assertions. What does he tell us? What he conveys to us is that actually the termination te or tie in the names of West African tribes generally signifies the race of, the men of, the children of. And then he gives a reference. He cites the book, The Nigerian Central Plateau, as a point of reference. When you look at that source, you would notice that the book is originally in French, but I have taken the liberty to translate it for my English-speaking audience. The portion he cites discusses the distinct worship practices of male and female tribes, highlighting the significance of endings like ng, ingo, inga for female tribes and r for male tribes, indicating their cultural affiliations within Sudanese confederations, not Ashanti confederations, but Sudanese. Let's read from page 105 to page 106. This is what it says. I've taken the liberty to translate it to English for our perusal. The male tribes, which were perhaps also the direct clans leaders of the confederations, have preserved the lunar cult of the phallic altars and worship the male principle of a triad divine. They are distinguished by an R in their name family. That is the Ka, Sa, Na, He, Ho, etc., etc. The tribe's females have solar worship female principles of the divine triad, and their name ends with Ing, Ingo, Enga. Thus, we have the Ha'ua and the Oaango, the Hama and the Mango, and Sokos, and the Songo, and Dingo, Longo, etc. Thus, according to the traditions of the Hongo and Bangansi, we must find in the names of families and tribes the index of their origin and their successive affiliations in the various Sudanese confederations. However, it should be noted that the endings A, Ba, Ka, Be, Inke, Tie often have a very general meaning, which means the people of, the men of, the children of, etc. This is the English translation of what you're seeing on the screen in French. This is the source that the author quotes or cites. I have a question. Why are we reading a Sudanese source that does not mention the Asante people? I would ask again. Why are we reading a Sudanese source, a Nigerian source, let me add that does not mention the Ashanti? The absence of the mention of the Asante in this Sudanese source raises questions about the validity of attributing specific meanings to the suffix te or tie within the Akan dialect. Contrary to the author's claims, te or tie does not hold the same connotations among the Asante people who speak a different dialect. His method of selectively identifying suffixes across the continent and associating them with the Asante to support his assertions is misleading and inaccurate. That is what he's doing. He has selectively identified suffixes across the continent, and he is taking what he's found, something close to what he's trying to portray, and he's associated it with the Asante people to support his assertions. This is misleading. Not only that, it is inaccurate. This bold claim that the suffix ti or tie in the names of West African tribes generally signifies the race of, the men of, or the children of, when applied to the Asante context, is factually incorrect. I repeat that again. This bold claim made by the author that the suffix te or tie in the names of West African tribes, generally signifying the race of, the men of, or the children of, when applied to the Asante context, it's factually incorrect. Citing a Sudanese source seems incongruent with the discussion at hand. It would have been more compelling if examples from tribes in the Gold Coast were provided to strengthen the argument. Unfortunately, this was not the case, raising doubts about the validity of the assertion. The sweeping statement regarding the meaning of T in West African tribal names is misleading. I must emphasize that. As in Akan, terms like race of would be ebusua or ase or asefo. You can even say Amaah. These are used instead of T or tie. It's never used. So when you're saying the Ga people, you say Inkrainfo, Fantefo, Chifo, or you can say Inkrainfo, Fantefo, Chifo. You can even say Inkrainfo ma, or Inkrainfo ase, or Inkrain asefo. You can even say Inkraini, Fantini, Asantini, etc. We don't use the T. It's not there in the Asante context. So that sweeping statement regarding the meaning of T in West African tribal names is misleading. I've just given you a bunch of examples and you did not hear the T because it is never used. No wonder he goes to Sudan. No wonder he goes to a Nigerian source to make his claim. It would have been nice to stick with the Akan people, stick with the tribes in Gold Coast and give us examples. We did not get that because his assertion is misleading. It's not accurate. This is why I mentioned that while Claridge's third explanation, despite being flawed and speculative, contains some kernel of truth concerning what he wrote. Fa-tre-fo, meaning that the people of Fante. Aswotre-fo, meaning that the people of Aswotre, he's saying that that is Ashanti. But fo or for is used, not ti or tie. So you now understand why I said Claridge's third explanation, despite being flawed and speculative, contains some kernels of truth. He uses for, not te or tie. That claim is extremely misleading. It's not accurate. Now, the author's assertion that Ashanti translates to the people of Ashan is not just erroneous and misleading, but fundamentally flawed. This undermines his broader conclusions regarding the supposed connections between the Ashanti and Judaic origins, as they are built upon a foundation of falsehoods. Building on the erroneous foundation, the author attempts to bolster his argument by referencing the word Ashan in the books of Joshua and Chronicles to suggest a connection to Hebrewisms. The author appears to have selectively chosen an example from the Bible, which is Ashan, to support his argument, reflecting a narrow and prejudiced perspective rather than one based on factual or scholarly grounds. He proceeds to explore the significance of the Hebrew word Ashan. However, one might question why the meaning of the Akan word Ashan is not provided, especially when discussing the Ashanti people. It would be more logical to present the meaning from the Akan dialect alongside the Hebrew interpretation to assess any potential similarities. Unfortunately, only the Hebrew meaning is presented, omitting the Akan interpretation altogether. If you tell us this is what the word means in Hebrew, why don't you tell us what the word means in Twi or Akan? We don't get that. So he proceeds to explore the significance of the Hebrew word Ashan, the meaning of it. However, we don't get the meaning of the Akan word Ashan in Akan. And you're discussing the Ashanti people. It would have been more logical to present the meaning from the Akan dialect alongside the Hebrew interpretation so that we can check if there are any potential similarities. Unfortunately, only the Hebrew meaning is presented, omitting the Akan interpretation altogether. Why is that? This absence is because Ashan holds no meaning in the Akan language. Ashan holds no meaning in the Akan language, unlike the names of certain clans and tribes from the Akan lineages that do bear significant meanings. So the lack of a defined meaning for Ashan in the Akan dialect casts doubt on the validity of the author's claim. Let me give you some examples so that you have a picture of what I am saying. This is why I assert the following. The name Akan signifies first. When we say Kanin or Okanin or Okandifo, it denotes the first breed. That is what Akan means. Kanimba, right? Okay. So even the name Akan has a meaning. The pivotal place where all Akans acknowledge their origins, their cornerstone, representing the initial Akan state, is Techiman. Here, they were known as Bono. In Techiman, they were known as Bono. Within the Akan community, the first group to emerge, PSA, comprised the Bono people with Nana Akwetey Amaah as the chief in Techiman. Where did they reside? They resided in the Pra-Ofin Basin, collectively, the Pra-Ofin Basin. Eventually, the notion of separation arose, leading to a faction known as Adanse, breaking away from Techiman. Where did the Adanse people, who are Akans? I'm telling you that the names of these Akans have meaning in the Akan dialect. I'm giving you a few examples. So, this group, Adanse, were known for their technical expertise in construction. They were technocrats. hence earned the name Adansi, signifying the people who build houses. That's where they get the name Adanse, for those who build houses. So this encapsulates the origin and significance of their name. So you see that Akan has a meaning. Adanse, a group that's separated from the Bono people, also has a name and it has a meaning. Another group out of the Bono people, the Akan people, had established themselves at a location known as Chira. For an extended period, a very long time. When they decided to relocate from this place, their Bono relatives expressed, "Moi dane Chirafo. Mu adane Chirafo," signifying that they had become associated with this place called Chira. Moi dane Chirafo. You have become Chira people. Hence, the name Denchira emerged from this narrative. Moi dane Chirafo. That is where you get the name Denchira coming from. So this also encapsulates the origin and significance of their name. Another group diverged from the Bono group, moving towards the coast. They identified themselves as Fante, deriving from Efa Atri. They have separated. Efa Atri, Omuhu. They have separated from the main group, denoting a segment that has separated from the larger group. Efa Atri Omuhu or Efa Ate Omuhu. That is where the name Fante or Fante comes from. Another group that splitted off was named Akwamu. They acquired this name due to their practice of robbing merchants on the road, as expressed in the phrase Akwemu Kafuo. Akwemu is the road. Akwemu Kafuo or Akwemufuo. That is where you get Akwemu from. So you see, this one also has a name. Another group emerged known as Trifo. What am I doing? I am showing you the names of these Akan groups and their meanings. Everyone has a meaning in the Akan language, in the Akan context. So another group emerged known as Trifo. They were responsible for refining the Bono Akan language, which featured numerous repetitions of be. By making slight adjustments and removing certain elements from the dialect, they invented what we called tree. Hence, they are called Trifo, which signifies polish it or refine. When we say chichihon, meaning that polish it, scrub it. So this is what this group were doing. Okay? They took the Bono Akan language or dialect and they made slight adjustments, removing certain elements from the dialect. Hence, their name, Trifo. It was coined to signify those who polished or refined the language. This is the origin of the term Twi for the dialect, stemming from the polished Bono dialect. So this is where Twifo, who are also Akans, got their names from. Now, coming to our topic. There was a group that resided under the Adansi people. You know the Adansi people, those who had the expertise of building, the technocrats. Adansi people, those who build. There was a group that resided under these people. This group was referred to as Amanase, because they were under these people. This group, Amanase, became known as Amansie. This group endured oppression from Denchira, Adanse, Kwamu, Chifo, Doma, all belonging to the same Akan community. So this oppressed Akan group, Amansie, resolved to seek their freedom, leading them to unite and form a confederation at Sumenya. They adopted the name Asante for this purpose, which is derived from Asa and Inti. Asa, Inti, meaning because of war. Originally, they were known as Amansie because they resided under the Adansi people. This is the original name, Amansie. But because they wanted their freedom, they resolved to seek their freedom. This led them to unite and form a confederation. And then they adopted the name Asa Inti, meaning because of war. And I'm saying that originally they were known as Amansie. Therefore, this name that we are talking about, Asante, or if you want to call it Ashanti, did not exist in ancient biblical times. It is relatively recent and originated in the Gold Coast. Following the critique of Claridge's endeavor to assign meaning and potential sources of the name Ashanti in Akan, the author of Hebrewisms of West Africa fails to offer an Akan interpretation. Instead, the author swiftly transitions to a Hebrew context to provide a Hebrew meaning related to smoke. In the Asante dialect, smoke is referenced as wusie, not Ashan. So the assertion made by the author in this book regarding the Hebraic flavor of the name Ashanti have been thoroughly examined and found to lack credibility. The claims, including those about the etymology of Ashanti, the significance of the suffix ti in African tribal names, the connection to the town of Ashan in Judah, and the comparisons to other names like Achan or Asben, all fail to hold up under scrutiny. The discussion of the Hebrew word Ashan, meaning smoke, is also dismissed as inaccurate in the Akan context. I believe it has been clearly demonstrated that the author's claims are unfounded and lack merit. The approach taken by the author in this section of the book is deemed problematic and potentially dangerous. Why is that? In the next video, I will deal with the Akan claim, followed by an exploration of how applying the same methods as this author will reveal a different identity of the Ashanti people from the biblical text. I'm going to use the biblical text, I'm going to use their culture, and I'm going to use historical data to make my point, to demonstrate how potentially dangerous the methods used by this author can be if I use the same methods to make a claim for the Ashanti people. Stay tuned for more insights on this intriguing topic, Hebrewisms of West Africa. Shalom.